Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members, for letting me bring up this really important issue. I've been really focused on it for about 6 years, and I am going to give you an overview of legislative efforts that have occurred. So, state and federal legislative efforts to address human trafficking. The first efforts to actually address human trafficking was 20 years ago, when U.S. Congress passed a monumental piece of legislation, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. It was a bipartisan effort to protect some of the most vulnerable people of our society, victims of human trafficking, and hold human traffickers accountable for their egregious abuses of individual rights. This landmark anti-trafficking legislation provided a comprehensive combination of victim protections, prevention and detection programs, and expanded criminal prohibitions. It worked to fulfill the 13th Amendment's promise of freedom from involuntary servitude. Efforts by states. The first states to criminalize human trafficking were Washington and Texas in 2003. Today, all 50 states have laws. Michigan joined in 2006. The Polaris Project has been instrumental in creating model laws for states. They have continued being a vital resource for current information about human trafficking. Shared Hope International is another source. They began issuing reports in 2011. In that first report, 26 states earned failing grades, including Michigan. Many did not make it a crime to buy sex with a child. Today, every state in the country considers sex trafficking a punishable crime. The Michigan law banning human trafficking took effect on August 24th, 2006, so 14 years ago, 15 years ago almost. The law was strengthened in 2010, with changes taking effect on April 1st, 2011. These changes included enhanced restitution for human trafficking victims that recognizes the value of the years lost due to the crime. We were recognized as being the most improved state in 2015, and as more bills have passed, including safe harbor provisions, stronger tools to hold traffickers accountable, and creating a human trafficking commission within the Department of Attorney General and a human trafficking health advisory board within the Department of Community Health. Both utilize a victim-centered, trauma-informed approach that emphasizes that the men, women, and children who are trafficked are victims, not criminals, while making policy recommendations to promote the awareness of human trafficking as well as prevention. Additional laws passed in 2016 include the ability of victims to fully clear past prostitution convictions from their criminal record, greater penalties for traffickers, and mandated training for healthcare professionals. This was spurred by the fact that most victims of sex trafficking saw a health professional while being trafficked. But this is not enough. Presidential executive orders occurred in January of 2020, and I was fortunate to be invited to the White House to witness the signing of this executive order that addresses the federal response to human trafficking. Notably, it includes orders to overcome information sharing challenges and improve law enforcement's capabilities to detect in real time the sharing of child sexual abuse material on the internet, including child pornography. Overcoming these challenges allows law enforcement officials to move more efficiently, to identify, protect, and rescue victims of online child sexual exploitation, investigate and prosecute alleged offenders, and the hope is that it will ultimately eliminate child sexual abuse material online. It also provides the ability to prevent child sexual exploitation through education partnerships. Our current bill package was recommended by the Human Trafficking Commission. It strengthens the tools available for prosecutors and judges to support victims and survivors of human trafficking. A main part of this package allows survivors, both adults and juveniles, to have any crime on their record expunged if it occurred while he or she was being trafficked. Also included is setting forth appropriate standards for expert testimony. giving immunity for any person compelled to give testimony, expands rebuttable presumptions. Previously, if a minor charged in commercial sexual activity fails to comply with a court order, their charges would be reinstated. This bill allows the judge to give him or her a second chance. It decreases the penalties for the act of commercial sexual activity and allows judges to place offenders in drug or mental health court. It increases penalties for obtainers of commercial sexual activity, or JOHNs, to a felony. 16 of those bills modernize Michigan laws by removing the terms prostitute and prostitution and replaces it with commercial sexual activity, bringing clarity to this issue in state law. So Ruth Rondon has become a really good friend of mine. She was trafficked out of Grand Rapids 40 years ago and has become a huge advocate for human trafficking survivors, and she considers herself a victor. She came and testified in our Human Trafficking Awareness Day last January, and this is her quote. "When I was trafficked, I was 15 years old. For the next 18 years, I lived a life that could only be described as a nightmare. I was repeatedly raped and beaten. I visited the emergency room regularly. But the worst part was that there was no one to help. There was no such thing as human trafficking. I was written off so many times as just a common prostitute. It wasn't until someone listened, until someone believed, until someone took action. Only then was I able to be free from that nightmare. On behalf of all the victims in Michigan right now living that nightmare, I thank you for listening, I thank you for believing, and I thank you for taking action."
Thank you, Rep, and thanks for your leadership on this legislative package that's coming through. I see one question. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Whiteford. This is a big issue, and as you know, I worked on this with you as well. Just in Genesee County alone last year, there was over 80 arrests made by Sheriff Swanson and their GHOST team, which is a Genesee Human Oppression Strike Team. And just in 1 year, 80 people arrested for trying to have sex with minors and basically grooming these kids to come to Genesee County for sex. It's an issue that, you know, a lot of people don't really think about. They always think of human trafficking as somebody getting picked up on the side of the road in a van, but it goes a lot further than that through grooming techniques in high school from older people out in the community, and building a trust with them and then getting them hooked on drugs, and prostitution is a gateway to that. So I thank you for all your work on that, and that's about it.
Thank you for saying that. And to address that too, the biggest issue that I was faced with, I actually had an FBI agent and survivors say, this isn't enough. What about when somebody's first rescued? And so I put together a small task force, a small work group to address those issues with that FBI agent, with victors, and with the department to figure out a way to have safe, consistent housing and wraparound services, which may last for 2 years. It tends to be the average. To make sure that these people are set in the right path for success.
Rep Breen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for this package. I come from Novi. I've hosted several human trafficking events there, and I would like to recognize a constituent of mine, Ms. Hagenian, who is with the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic Violence and Sexual Violence. The sex trafficking is a horrible, horrible thing. And but in Novi a few years ago, we had a tragic fire. 5 young men died, undocumented immigrants. No human trafficking charges were pursued, but the labor trafficking is a huge issue in the United States. And I'm wondering, is there anything in the package that specifically addresses labor trafficking?
So anybody, it actually covers the expungement part of it, covers anybody who did a crime while they were being trafficked at that time, for a judge to be able to consider those charges to have them expunged.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. I would like to maybe work with you in the future to help address labor trafficking, because it is such a problem in the United States, especially in Michigan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep Breen. Rep Rendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Whiteford, for bringing this legislation forward. I would like you to comment, if you would, on how widespread this is, not just in Michigan, but in other states. I know even where I live, in northern Michigan, we have had arrests for this very type of activity. Is it just as prevalent in northern Michigan and rural areas as it is in the cities?
So I did not get current data on that issue. The Polaris Project actually plots that out. There's a nationwide hotline that people can call, 888, I think it's 3737-888, something like that. And so they track it state by state. I would have to look that up. But just talking to these victors most recently, and I'm on a call almost every Sunday with a group of survivors, victors, trying to make a difference for other people. It's ongoing. It is a serious issue that the FBI agent that I've been working with has been addressing as well. When they find these young boys, young girls, where do they go to find a safe spot to get the services that they really need? And they're victims of crime. And it's actually child abuse for minors. And so we need to work with whatever funding we can to make sure that we have those places available. So we are actually putting together a database of every proper home that's available, and make sure that we have standards as well. So it's an ongoing project, but they're finding people almost every day and trying to find safe places to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rep. Colley.
Yeah. Thank you, Rep. Whiteford, for championing this issue. And I know you put in a lot of work and time, and it's something that many of us care deeply about. I had a question when it comes to the work that's been done in the past and then what remains to be done as we look ahead this term, and specifically related to the Johns. Is there any coming action on kind of going after that side of things?
Yeah, there is a bill specifically to make the purchasing of people for these crimes, for them to have felony charges, which they are not felony charges right now.
That will be new for our state, right?
Because you follow the money, right?
Great.
And where's the money coming from? People need to be accountable for the fact that they are spending money on a person, and it doesn't matter if they think it's okay or not. It's never okay.
Great. Thank you.
Especially with a child.